Hey everyone, we are doing Tombstone today.
We're doing Tombstone and we're doing a few other new things.
Yeah,
So please anticipate technical difficulties.
yeah,
They're actually going to be part of the charm of this
yeah,
video.
yeah. Like us ghosting in the machine here.
Yeah.
Our setup is a little bit flaky today,
And the
but
reason why,
we are actually here
yeah.
together. So yeah, Dom is here in New Hampshire, and we are doing Tombstone. So trust us, this is going to be flaky as far as
It's brand new.
yeah.
We haven't done one of these in person. I haven't visited in quite a while.
It's been
So,
it's been a while. So yeah, just anticipate that you're gonna see little glitchy things going on. But
but again, that's going to be part of the charm.
exactly. Tombstone is what we're doing. This was Dom's pick, and Dom's gonna do the intro on this one.
Yeah, this is in response to the passing of Val Kilmer, a great actor, and I could have chosen any one of a number of movies.
Yeah,
It's just that Tombstone really stands out, not just for him, but for a
yeah,
lot of reasons.
yeah. That one of my favorite movies of all time. So yeah,
I don't have too much to explain because Tombstone is sort of a retelling of events, a retelling of the shootout at the OK Corral. It follows Kurt Russell as Wyatt Earp, who rolls into Tombstone, reunites with his brothers, as well as his good friend Doc Holliday, as they try to sort of set up a business in the town of Tombstone, which at this point was a booming silver town with
yeah,
lots
yeah.
of money coming in and out of it. However, what they may not have been automatically aware of is that there was a gang known as the Cowboys. And again, this is based on real life events. That was sort of the de facto law. Not that they were following any rule
Ah,
of law other than theirs. Oh, I've disappeared again.
yeah,
So, so therein starts a conflict between the local gang and the newcomers, the new forces to be reckoned with, which as the movie progresses, we see that they are indeed a force to be reckoned with.
exactly. And and Wyatt Earp has made a name for himself in another city, and as a lawman. And when he comes here, everyone's kind of anticipating that he's going to be at law. He has no intention of taking up a badge again, and he just wants to make some money and be happy with his brothers. But it doesn't go that way. So
You know, one of the telling things about this movie, one of the reasons this movie really stands out is the historical accuracy and the powers of the director wanted all of them to be in actual wool clothing, despite this being shot in Arizona, and at times the temperature going above 130
yeah,
degrees.
my God, it must have been miserable, absolutely miserable.
Kurt Russell is said to have joked about no wonder Wyatt Earp shot so many people. If you're wearing wool clothing in Arizona in summer, you're going to walk around kind of mad.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And there's some real bad guys in this area at that time. And the guys behind us right now, that's Powers Booth in the middle. And they this scene here is one of the opening scenes, and it's actually kind of sets the tone for who these guys are and just how nasty and despicable they really are. They kind of barge into a wedding, and it's a scene of kind of carnage. But yeah, it's there's a massacre there. Pretty much everybody that's in the town is killed. They rape the bride in the church, of all things, and yeah, it's just a
As I will point out again and again, there are parts of this that are based in fact, and indeed, there is an account of Mexican police killing two of the cowboys during a cattle rustling or a horse stealing event, and then a number of the cowboys coming back and actually massacring them in revenge. However, if we're going to stick to true accounts, that happened in 1881,
Huh.
whereas the accounts in the movie, the shootout at the OK Corral, I believe was 1879.
Oh, okay, yeah, yeah, big difference. So, yeah, and what's also kind of funny and the when the Earps come into the town of Tombstone, they come with their wives, two of which are laudanum addicts. They like their opiates, but they come in all looking hopeful, happy, like
Like upstanding citizens.
yeah, and it turns bad pretty quickly. And you have in this scene here with Bill Paxton there, of course, Kurt Russell, and oh shoot, what's his name?
Sam
Yeah,
Elliott.
Sam Elliott. How could I forget
I
that name?
know, man.
But
Just the mustache
yeah,
alone.
and well, that's another thing, Dom. You want to tell them about the mustaches
Uh,
because
oh yeah, the director is quoted as bragging that the mustaches and the lightning are both real. So they had them all grow real mustaches. I'm very impressed that they were able to get
yeah.
such full, lush, manly stashes. Because mine's okay. I've got no complaints, but I could not do anything close to Russell or Elliott.
Yeah, I actually, I mean, I have grown mustaches before and I've grown beards, but I don't have that kind of a impressive stash. So that is quite impressive. But the real standout, Dom and I just watched this
Just
movie, yeah,
yesterday.
yesterday together, and you know, it'd been a little while for I don't know how long it had been for you, Dom,
It'd been like
but
well over 10 years.
yeah. So for me, it wasn't quite that long, but it was long enough, and I was truly impressed by the movie, watching it again, and I always remembered this fondly as a movie that I truly loved. I'm disappearing inside of her,
Ooh.
but which isn't such a terrible thing. But anyway, that's Joanna Pecula. That's the name. Is if
Oh,
I got it
I
right.
gotta find this again.
And of course, the great Val Kilmer beside her is Doc Holliday. But
Yeah, Joanna Pacula,
okay, yep,
Big
and
Nose Kate.
okay, yep, that's the character, and of course we're gonna keep fading in and out. It's just our camera setup. We don't have it mounted though.
It's our
So
mercurial nature.
yeah, yeah, we're ghosts in the machine, but we just don't have our normal camera set up. So bear with us. It's just going to be part of the charm, as Don was saying. But yeah, these characters are great. There's Powers Booth. I mean, what a cast! And I saw this years ago with a friend of mine, and he introduced me to the movie. I hadn't seen it. I fell in love with it. I've been a fan of it ever since. But you know, as great as this cast is, it's Dom was saying it yesterday when we were watching it. Val Kilmer just steals the movie. He completely runs away with the movie. As good as everybody is, there's Val Kilmer as the longer
The lugger.
Doc Holliday, and which Dom was just saying yesterday when we were watching this. Can you imagine how contagious
Yeah,
he must have
because
been?
I mean, he had TV. TV
Yeah,
wasn't uncommon back in the late 1800s.
yeah, it
And
was spreading like wildfire.
it's an extremely contagious disease.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
so just watching him, he does both him and the makeup people do a great job at making him appear sick.
Oh my God, yeah,
And knowing infectious diseases the way I do,
yeah,
it's just an added level of anxiety as I'm
yeah.
watching the film.
It's he's so contagious that it's actually making me disappear. Well, while we're talking, but no, he actually I don't know what they did for with it's great makeup because there are moments in this movie where you're looking at him and you're thinking, holy shit, he looks
How is he standing?
yeah, and that's another thing. The loyalty that he had for for Kurt Russell as Wyatt Earp, he was always there for him, and which is one of the parting words that Kurt Russell says to him is, "You were always there for me, Doc." Their friendship is one of the, you know, uh, probably most inspiring things in the movie is how
Yeah,
they protected each other, and yeah,
and whoever left the comment on the short that I put up,
yeah,
you're exactly right. When at the near the end of the movie, where Holiday says Wyatt Earp is my friend, and another guy says, "Well, I got lots of friends,"
yeah,
and Doc Holiday answers, "Well, I don't."
yeah, and that's he looked at his real good friend was Wyatt Earp, and that was his buddy, and he was willing to put his life on the line. There's another scene at the OK Corral, and that was one of the scenes that I found touching, was when they're getting ready to head to the OK Corral, and they're facing what they think could be certain death, and Wyatt Earp looks at Doc and he goes, "Well, Doc," he goes, "you don't have to go. This isn't your fight." And he looks at him and he goes, "That's a hell of a thing for you to say to me," because he looked at it as like, I'm part of your family too." And he was absolutely going to be in that fight, which he kind of started. They got there and they really didn't want to have the fight. And when they get down there, they're walking down, and the famous walk when they head on down, it's almost like the movie Mean Girls, that power chick walk, except these are the power dudes, and they're headed on down to the OK Corral, and and as they're when they get down there, they're like, "Okay, guys, like, well, this doesn't have to be," and and Doc Holliday winks at one of them, and Kurt Russell goes, "Oh, like, oh shit, it's because it was on then. They everyone started shooting."
But you point out how this was a reluctant gunfight. I
Yes.
don't think anyone wanted to start shooting.
No.
A few weeks ago, when I chose the Western My Name is Nobody, I had mentioned that there seems to be like two distinct eras of Westerns.
Yeah.
There was the original back in the 50s and 60s. You can even push it back to the 40s, the 20s, where the hero of the Western is this idealized lone gunslinger, and he's fearless. He's deadly accurate.
Yeah.
He solves problems with a gun, and it almost couldn't be more black and white. Not to create a pun from the black and white westerns, but it's a very solid formula. It's the code of the West. Whereas I feel that Tombstone is one of the first of the new breed that tried to show these characters as more than just gunslingers. It tried
Yeah.
to show them as three-dimensional people. And so, here Wyatt Earp is not just this killing machine. He's got a wife. He's got aspirations. He does
Yeah.
not want to do this.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. And that's another thing too is I do remember reading different historical accounts of the shooting at the OK Corral, and who they were blaming in the aftermath of the OK Corral, who they were blaming for starting it, and who instigated it, and who was at fault. And it wasn't always the cowboys who were considered to be at blame. They blamed it on the Earps too, but some of that was newspaper reporting at the time, because let's face it, the newspaper reporting, we talk about nowadays about press and fake press and all that stuff, but they were the press has always been the press has always been, depending on who you were representing at the time, the press was always catering to somebody, and maybe whoever was you
Well,
know
there's a little more to it than that. So, why is the shootout at the OK Corral so famous? We're talking about, a gunfight that lasted maybe 5 minutes.
yeah,
And why are the Earps usually seen as the heroes? Why is Wyatt Earp, despite never being shot in his life, Why does he loom so large? And the reason why, we may think of this as ancient history, being the late 1800s, but Wyatt Earp died in 1929.
Yeah,
He
long life.
he moved out to Hollywood in 1915 and spent that time as a consultant for many westerns
Yeah,
being filmed in Hollywood. And so his proximity meant that it was his story that was amplified, his
yeah.
version of things that were amplified. Otherwise, who knows if we would even know who he was and what the shootout at the OK Corral was.
Well, and that's another thing as far as like historical accounts. A lot of times, I mean, there were people, there were authors at the time that were putting out those dime store
Mm-hmm.
booklets, that novels for, and it would be, like in the end, and at the end of this one, when he's talking to, when Doc's dying, and he hands him My Friend Wyatt Earp. It's a booklet that was supposedly written by Wyatt
And
Earp.
I've researched this. I have found no record that
Yeah.
Wyatt Earp ever wrote a book.
Well, it was probably, if that book could have existed, but it was probably written by someone else
Yeah,
who didn't even talk to Wyatt Earp and just put it out there. So
and probably made a fair buck on it.
yeah, and Wyatt Earp probably never saw a dime of it. But yeah, so but this is such a great, for how much of it is fiction, how much of it is fact and historical, accuracy. It's a great movie,
Mhm.
and that's another thing. I grew up in an earlier time with westerns, and I was really until this western came out. I was starting to believe that the western was dead, and that they really weren't making good westerns anymore. And then this happened. And when it did, it was like, man, because I consider this to be maybe the best Western I ever saw. It's that good.
That's a tough
It's a
call.
tough call because there's so many good ones. And just recently, I mean, or I say recently, but the remake of True Grit, that shocked me how good that was. The Coen brothers did an unbelievable job. So that's another one we got to do.
And then there's a lot of different places than the old west that you can do a western. You had Quickly Down Under in Australia,
Yeah, yeah.
and there's a lot of western feel to Australia. Nick Cave did a movie called The Ass Saw the Angel, which is relatively violent and very very western
It's
like.
it's wait a minute. What's the title?
And The Ass Saw the Angel.
Wow, I thought that's what you said.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, Nick Cave is a wild dude.
Was he an ass?
I'm sure at some point he
Yeah,
has
I'm sure
been.
he was. But look at the cast behind us right there. Val Kilmer, Kurt Russell, Dana Delaney,
Sam
Sam Elliott.
Elliott.
Yeah, and I mean, the Powers Booth, and that's come up with that one. Doc's girlfriend,
Oh yeah,
to your,
Joanna Pacula.
yes, over your shoulder. So I mean, what a
But
cast!
there was also Jason Priestley,
Yes, Billy
Char
Bob Thornton.
Billy Bob Thornton, Charlton Heston.
Yes, yes, the great Charlton Heston of
And
Western
but
fame.
this is why this is such an homage to Val Kilmer, because despite having, wow, a powerhouse of a cast, he shines.
Yeah,
When you think of Tombstone, you think of Val Kilmer. You
yeah,
think of I'm Your Huckleberry.
yeah. Oh yeah, yeah. The lines that he had, which by the way, uttering that line there, um, that was something. And when I heard the lines, I was thinking those are like odd phrases that he was coming out with. Those were historically
Yeah.
true to life phrases that were used at the time. They were expressions.
Some people
So,
have posited that that term is in reference to the Mark Twain story Huckleberry Finn,
oh, okay.
where Huckleberry Finn is Tom Sawyer's right hand man. He's
Oh,
his true friend, and so meaning I'm your man, I'm your Huckleberry.
yeah, that makes sense. That does make sense. I don't know where I'm your Daisy comes from. Uh, but yeah, Val Kilmer again. We already said this, but he steals the movie. He's so good.
A ton of what he did was all him, was totally ad lib. The Southern accent, him whistling while they're walking towards the OK Corral,
Yeah,
the wink, all of that was him.
yeah, yeah. And you know, and you look at this cast of characters, it's kind of hard. Like Kurt Russell when he's in it, and Kurt Russell was a powerhouse in this. And the fact that he stole from the movie from Kurt Russell, Powers Booth, I mean, Sam Elliott, all these guys. Billy Bob Thornton has a very small part, but my God, he's so good in that. It's actually really funny. He plays a real bad guy that's doing. He's a faro dealer, and when Kurt Russell goes into the bar that he's working in, Kurt Russell is saying, how come the place is, there's hardly anybody in here?" And he goes, "It's that guy, it's that guy over there." And he points to Billy Bob Thornton and says, "He just came in here one day and slapped everybody around, and basically was a bully and a little tough guy thug." And Kurt Russell proceeds to show him that he's not that.
Yeah.
So I mean, one of the first things that he says to Kurt Russell is, he goes, you're not even packing," and he says, "I don't need to pack like with you, someone like you," and he takes the guy's gun away, slaps him around, and actually before that, there's the famous line there where he's telling him he he's telling him, are you gonna stand there? Or are you gonna pull that smoke wagon? But yeah, there's just great lines in this movie. Kurt Russell has a number of them, and
it's funny that there's not a lot of real gunplay, real
no,
gunfight action there. But what makes up for it, what fills this movie, are the tense confrontations like this one,
yes,
like with Wyatt Earp
yep,
confronting this guy played by Billy Bob Thornton. You don't know if this is going to break out into
yeah,
something where they're both going to end up dead. Um, it's that tension. There
yeah,
doesn't need to be the actual violence.
yeah. It's funny. It's almost like what I've always said about horror movies, that it's like people a lot of times think it's like, oh, it's a high kill count. They'll count the number of stabbings or murders in a movie, and it's like that's not what makes
Mm.
something scary. What makes something scary is the tension, the build up to whatever's gonna, and that's kind of what makes this movie a lot of times really great. Is yeah, there's a lot of tense scenes. Hey, one of the better scenes is the whole saloon situation with Powers Booth and Val Kilmer and Johnny Ringo there.
Yeah, I got to point out one of my favorite scenes in the entire movie is when Ringo and Doc Holliday, so this guy with the gun and Val Kilmer's character, they're sitting across this card table. He's got his gun out, and Holliday is in his cups, and they start trading comments back and forth in
Really
Latin.
nice cops. Yeah. Yes. Yes. And you actually, do you want to give us
Yeah,
the translation?
so I looked up the translation. Someone I did not translate it myself, even though I took Latin in high school. I did not do the translation, but um, uh,
They go back and forth with Val Kilmer saying, "That's Latin, dear," to his girlfriend, and he goes, "Should I hate him?" And she goes, "You don't even know him." But Dom, give us the
so,
translation.
so Doc Holliday Val Kilmer starts it out where he says, "In vino veritas," which means in wine there is truth. To which Ringo replies, "Age quod agis," do what you do.
Huh.
Doc Holliday responds, "Credit Judaeus appella non ego." Let Appella the Jew believe, not I.
Huh.
To which Ringo says, "Juventus Soltorum Magister." Youth is the teacher of fools. And then Doc Holliday goes, "In pace resquiat." Rest in peace.
And that those words come into play because those two were destined to have a confrontation, and and one of the really talking about tense things in the movie is when Ringo tells Kurt Russell, "Meet me down by the river for the gunfight," and Kurt Russell says to Doc Holliday, who at this point, and the scene behind us is one of is pretty much how he looks when he goes into the gunfight, but he's doing real bad. He's dying, and so Kurt Russell knows he's got to handle this on his own, even though he's not really the gunfighter that Ringo or Doc Holliday is. And he says to Doc, he goes, "Can I beat him?" And he says, "No, you can't. He'll kill you." And of course, he's a man. He's got to go. That was the
Code of the
Code of
West.
the West. And so who should show up but Johnny Ringo, and our Johnny Ringo, of course, but Val Kilmer, and the famous the famous confrontation scene where he's like, "What are you doing here?" And he's
I'm not quite as sick as I let on to
yeah, yeah,
be.
but and he I think that's when he says, "I'm your Daisy," and he goes, let's do this." It's a great gunfight. That's actually the scene where he's at the river, but it's a great scene, and Val Kilmer completely steals the scene with the way he leads him on, calls him in, shoots him in the head, and then he's still telling him, "Come on, come on." The guy's dying on his feet, and but I mean, there's great lines in this when he's laying there on the ground. He goes, "Poor soul, he just wasn't up to it." But
Yeah, there are so many quotable
there's
lines throughout this entire movie.
but yeah, it's absolutely, and that's yeah. Kurt Russell comes out. He's rushing out. He hears the gunshots, and there's Doc Holliday. So I mean, like I said, what a terrific film.
I should point out, like, this is in homage to Val Kilmer, and we've been going on about him. He is great, but I should point out Kurt Russell's role in this. Not only was he one of the stars, and he loomed large in the movie, he was essentially the director of this movie.
Yeah,
The director on the credits is George Cosmatos, and I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. However, a lot of people are saying that he was a ghost director for Kurt Russell, who was really the one involved in setting up a lot of the shots.
yeah, yeah. Believe me, I'm definitely waxing poetic about Val Kilmer, but um, Kurt Russell, I'm a huge admirer of Kurt Russell. I mean, who isn't?
Yeah, we'll be
Uh,
having several Kurt Russell
yeah,
movies.
the thing is definitely coming for one thing. We've got to do that one. But I mean, my God, Kurt Russell, Kurt Russell should have been the main force in this movie if Val Kilmer hadn't been such a force himself.
And
But
we were just discussing that Val Kilmer almost was not the one that
oh,
played
that's
Doc
right.
Holliday.
Yeah, that's right. We were talking about that.
And well, you're the one that brought it up. Who
Yeah,
who was the one that was almost chosen?
yeah. It was oh shoot, it was
William
Yeah,
Dafoe.
Defoe, yeah, and yeah, what was the reason that Defoe
I
he was involved in another project?
I think there was a scheduling conflict.
Yeah,
Don't quote me on that, but that's what I think I
yeah,
read.
that's probably what. But and I actually was reading an article online. Dom and I were, and it was the author of the online article was speculating like what would the movie have been like without Val Kilmer as Doc Holliday, and it would have. So yeah, I mean it probably still would have been a good movie, but I don't think it would have been that movie. And
And I was saying this is one of the most interesting things about this to me. As we've been doing this channel, and I do reading on the background of some of these movies, of how they were made, how were people cast, it's not infrequent that at the start of a project, the director, the writer, whoever will want a certain actor. They almost wrote this role for that actor, and then for whatever reason, that actor couldn't come.
yeah,
And it turned out being a completely different movie
Yeah, yeah.
for these random circumstances. So how many movies would have been completely
Oh
different,
yeah,
and we'll
yeah.
just never know.
Yeah, yeah, that no, that's very true. That's there has been countless movies that I mean you think, wow, you hear a name and you think that would have been really strange to have that particular person in the role. And sometimes you think, well, it would have been maybe kind of cool. But at the same time, like I said, I don't know. This movie was such a Val Kilmer.
Yeah,
Uh,
it's like what would The Shining have been with if Nicholson
oh
weren't
my
cast?
God, yeah, yeah.
Like we're talking an entirely different movie.
Yeah, and I mean I can't see the movie hardly. I don't want to see another. We were talking about this the other day about doing a remake. If it's you're not going to come up with something better, then don't remake the same movie because if you are going to remake the same movie, you're making something that's it's like I don't want to see this movie. It's a remake of The Shining. As much as Stephen King has gone on and on about how he didn't like the Stanley Kubrick
Well,
one.
well, actually, did you see Stephen King's?
Yeah, I did, and I was
Yeah, I mean, I
deeply disappointed.
love Stephen King. Mr. King, if you ever
Yeah,
happen to watch,
yeah,
love your work.
yeah.
That movie was
But
horrible.
you look, Stephen King, you're not a director. Stop trying to make movies. Let somebody else do it. Kubrick was a better filmmaker than you, or than you are. You're a great author, but I'm just giving you advice. Not that you want advice from me, but no. And that's another thing. This scene here, I kind of held on this particular background shot because this particular scene um, was the one where he's talking about you call down the thunder, and there's some real great lines from Kurt Russell, but those lines actually start with the massacre at the in the church, the wedding ceremony,
Yeah,
and
there's a quote from the Book of Revelation
yes,
about basically the Pale Rider.
yes, and at first it started out a priest says it to them, and he says it in Spanish, and Johnny Ringo, who's a excellent linguist,
An
apparently.
educated
He's a
man.
cunning linguist. um, but anyway, yeah, he's a very educated man, and apparently they were
Yeah.
both Doc Holliday and him were both very educated. But he ends up giving the translation, which is words that eventually Kurt Russell utters about the you. It's not just you brought down the thunder. You tell him how hell's coming because he says that he goes and hell was coming with him. And when Kurt Russell says the line, he goes, "You tell him I'm coming, and hell's coming with me." and so he repeats the lines that they're prophetic, which what they did at that wedding, they deserved that retribution, which was divine retribution. They deserved it, but um,
I did not realize Doc Holliday,
yeah,
a dentist.
yes, yeah, he was a dentist. I don't know what kind of a dentist he was, but the although
Well,
dentist,
I don't think there were many specialties at
yeah,
that point.
dentistry back then was not what dentistry is today. I mean, I'm sure there's people that look at dentistry today and they think, well, it's still pretty crude, but back then it was crude. Pretty much all they were doing was doing an extraction. Like they weren't filling teeth back then. It was like you came to a dentist and it's like, oh, I'll pull that for you. so so yeah, that's pretty much maybe they gave you painkillers. There weren't even antibiotics back then.
Nope.
So
Nope. They did have cocaine
yeah, they did.
and laudanum,
Yeah,
as we know.
yeah, yeah. That's the other thing in this movie is the Kurt Russell's wife is a laudanum addict.
And we
Um,
see a number of opium dens.
well, when she's looking for the bottle of laudanum and she's real frantic about wanting to get the bottle, is it Sam Elliott's wife that says, "Oh, do you want some
I
laudanum?"
think
And
so.
she pulls it right out of her purse. She's got a bottle, and I think actually I think there were a lot of ladies that probably ended up a lot of times the traveling medicine showmen, they would probably market it to naturally the sick, but old people, they would push it to women. So they probably made a terrible amount
Well,
of addicts.
they probably did, but if you've got nothing else,
Yes. Yeah.
at least you've got
Yeah.
something. And
Yeah.
opioid addiction, not fantastic, but sometimes the lesser of two
Yeah.
evils
True.
in these situations.
True. And I'll tell you what, if I was, I mean, if tomorrow somebody somebody told me, "Oh, you have cancer. It's not operable. It's not curable. It's highly advanced." I'd be like, "Yeah, give me some pain medicine because that at least keep me comfortable." Yeah.
Well, also, if I'm in a situation like this movie and I'm having one of my arms amputated,
Oh my God.
yes, I
Yeah.
want law.
Yeah. I mean, that's the other thing. This was a brutal time to be alive. We're just before we started this, we were talking about the use of like what weapons they used, and shotguns were very often used, and even whether it was gunfights or whatever. But I mean, who the hell wants to be shot with a shotgun? And I mean, or if you were fighting, Native Americans and you got shot with an arrow, um, you get an arrow in your belly or something.
These are not clean kills.
No, no, and digging a bullet out. There's a scene in this one where Bill Paxton. I don't even know if we actually even brought up his name, but Bill Paxton is in this. The great Bill Paxton, and he's one of the brothers, and I mean, there's a scene where he ends up getting a bullet in his, or is that Sam Elliott? Where they get a bullet in their back. That no, it was Bill
It was
Paxton.
Bill
They
Paxton.
couldn't get the bullet out; it was too deep, and he's digging for the bullet, and the guy's in terrible pain. He's bleeding to death, bleeding out. I mean, and Kurt Russell's trying to hold his brother still. It's an awful scene, and I mean, people died like that. You could be if you were a rancher, cowboy, whatever, on a ranch, and you had a horse roll over on you, and you broke your leg, shattered it, and it's
That's a potential, that's life threatening,
yeah,
literally.
so all of those or your ribs got crushed because a horse rolled over on you. I mean, yeah, you bleed to death. It's we're talking a brutal time to be alive. The West was, people look at the West as being, and hey, I've always been really fascinated with the West, but my God, it was a tough time to be alive, a tough time to be a man. But
Probably a tough time to be a woman. I mean, I don't care
yeah,
who what your
yeah,
gender was.
that's true. A woman didn't have it easy at all. Uh,
It's funny. So I am on the East Coast at this time, and I'm sitting here with my Uncle Mike, but obviously I'm going to spend some time with my mom. It just so happens I'm over at my mom's. She hands me a Smithsonian magazine that she was keeping for me for some reason. And I flip through it, and there's an article on Tombstone.
yeah,
So I
yeah,
get to read some historical facts about the city itself. And what stuck with me is there was a scene in this movie, in the movie Tombstone, where Kurt Russell is eating with chopsticks.
wow,
And
yeah,
I always thought, like, really?
yeah,
Some guy in the Wild West using chopsticks. But Tombstone was actually a very multinational
yeah,
city with documents showing that there were people from China, Japan,
yeah.
Sweden, obviously European countries, but several different nationalities were represented.
The West was always it was talking about multiracial, multinational. It was always a real strong mix of pretty much everything, because you had a lot of Chinese immigrated to the U.S. They built the railroads. You had freed slaves after the Civil War that came, and a lot of them became cowboys. They worked on ranches. You had naturally, you had people like from Germany and Sweden and all these different countries that were coming here. The Irish. I mean, you had and Native Americans, you had Mexicans. I mean, everybody was there. There was pretty much every race, creed, color that you could possibly imagine. And yeah, there was people eating Chinese food there. You would think of that as more like something that came later or something, but it didn't. It came very early to the U.S.
We've talked about how brutal a time period this was, but yet this is also the time period and the region that gave the US the nickname the land of opportunity,
Yeah,
because you could go there and no matter where you started from,
yeah,
you could luck into a silver mine. You could start a Chinese restaurant that
yeah.
became incredibly popular. You had the chance of really making something out of almost nothing.
Yeah, and the even as far as land, there was land just there for the taking. It was they had the Homestead Acts where if you just worked a piece of land, you could file a claim, work the piece of land, as long as you were living on it and working it, the land was yours. And so it was a time of wonderful opportunity. Um, but again, a tough time. So
No, back to the
we
movie.
benefit from that.
Back to the movie at hand. This is a hefty movie coming in at 130 minutes.
Yeah,
However, as the script was originally written, it was supposed to be at least twice as long.
really,
Yeah,
really, wow.
the script wanted to follow every one of the main characters from the shootout, the events leading up to the shootout at the OK Corral to each of their eventual fates. Now, at
Yeah,
the end of the movie, we've got Robert Mitchum acting as a narrator,
yeah,
but the original script actually wanted those events acted out.
yeah, and that would have been way too much. It was as it was. I think they did a really good job with uh, Kurt Russell following Doc Holliday to his death, and then eventually his wife. I don't know if his wife died of uh, opium poisoning or whatever, or whether they just divorced. I don't know what the
I
conclusion was
I
on that.
actually heard how she died. It was relatively unremarkable, so I don't
Yeah,
remember.
but he does end up hooking up with Dana Delaney, which I do believe he did. She was an actress, and I do believe he actually did.
That could have been what got him out to Hollywood.
Yeah, yep. And I love in the end of the movie when Robert Mitchum is narrating, he talks about Wyatt Earp and what was the year you were saying he died? It was 1929.
1929, yeah.
Yep, and he said Tom Mix and who was the other one that attended the
John Ford.
no, it wasn't John Ford. It was but at any rate, he said Tom Mix wept, and Tom Mix was a very famous silent film actor, cowboy actor, and so obviously very into the idea of Wyatt Earp and the whole power of who he was. But yeah, it speaks a lot for who the character of Wyatt Earp. He stuck around for a long time. I'm sure he made a great impression on Hollywood. But
Yeah, the Wild West was a mythical time. Like
yeah, yeah,
Knights of the Round Table.
yeah,
Um, and I think one of the big reasons that it became the myth it is because of Wyatt Earp and him pushing that myth to the Hollywood
yeah, yeah,
set.
yeah. There were certain historical figures, Wild Bill Hickok, Annie Oakley. There were these certain characters that were larger than life, and they if it wasn't for those characters and what how they promoted the West, it created that you know legend that we love, and some of it is true. Some of it, as crazy as some of it is, some of it was true, and the other thing is some of it is pure myth. But of course, it's fun to
We love that, man.
you
We love myths.
yeah
Those are stories.
well, we still love the King Arthur legend, and but another thing that we were talking about and that's featured in the movie, they show some of the tombstones that really are there at Tombstone, and they were there back in the past with the crazy, some of the crazy logos that were written on the tombstone or tombstones. And if you stood there and read some of the epitaphs, it was really, really humorous stuff. Lester Moore, here lies Lester Moore.
Yeah, so let me
You read them, yeah.
read the quote because I
Yes,
saved these.
yeah, yeah. Go for
Here lies Lester Moore, 4 slugs from a 44,
it.
no less, no more. And in actuality, Lester Moore was a Wells Fargo agent who was killed with a 44 in Naco, Arizona by Hank Dunston.
And yep, and let me just say, 4 slugs from a 44. You don't know.
Well, I mean,
You
how
don't
would
need more.
you wouldn't
You don't need.
you would need one.
Sure, I would. It would do me in. A 44 slug is a pretty hefty slug. That's another thing. The whether it was a pistol caliber or whether it was a rifle caliber, the slugs back then were brutal stuff.
Although, we talk about caliber, we talk about slugs. The muzzle velocity was nothing compared to what the muzzle velocities are now.
On some of them, yeah, you're right. But
And the muzzle velocity accounts for at least as much, if not more, of the stopping power.
yeah, but they did have rounds like
Oh, they were effective.
You had your long Colt and rounds some of the Buffalo rifles. I sure as hell wouldn't want that. If it knocks down a buffalo, it can knock me down. So yeah, but yeah, you're right. We have much higher with modern powders and modern calibers.
We know how to inflict harm
Oh
upon
yeah,
each other.
yeah. Oh, absolutely. That's something that we've always known how to, which is another thing we were talking about was just brutal deaths. Um, and I mean, it's always been like that. In medieval times, you had people killing each other with axes, and who the hell wants to be killed with an axe? But then again, they were killing each other with axes here too. Native Americans would come at you with an axe and or a war club and beat your brains in. I mean, everybody was just killing each other in brutal fashion and form. So, and again, no antibiotics.
Yeah, yeah. But the thing is very few people wanted to kill each other. It was seen as an act of necessity.
Yeah. Well, survival was a tough thing back then, and you had to fight for your piece of ground. There was always somebody that was wanting to take. Gold was a thing that made people turn into killers. I mean, the greed over land. Whether they were killing American Indians, whether they were killing each other. Uh, it was it was a brutal time to, but hey, we have westerns and it's a lot of fun. So at least we can live vicariously in westerns. But like I said, um, I love the myth and lore and legend. I don't think if I really had a choice to go back at that time, I don't think you know, I'd prefer I'd rather enjoy it in The Unforgiven
vicariously,
vicariously in a and this Western, let's just say, I don't know how many people watching have seen this movie, but I don't, there's no, first of all, Dom picked this, so you know damn well that Dom loves the Western. I love this Western. I would give it 100 thumbs up. That's how much I love you can see my thumbs.
Okay, you can't even see mine, can you?
There you go. There you go. Sorry about the camera stuff, guys. We're fading in and out, but
we're not professionals. We've said it 100 times.
yeah, and this is kind of a crazy setup that we've got going here today, but we just did this as a makeshift video.
This is our first time doing this together in person,
in the same room. So usually he's on the West Coast, I'm on the East Coast. But again, if you have not seen this movie, you owe it to yourself to watch this movie.
If you like westerns, again, it's like if someone told me you need to watch this love story, I'm just not into love stories. But if you are into westerns, this is one of the truest westerns I could ever.
You know something though, I'm not necessarily. I wouldn't say that like I seek out like romance ones or rom-coms or whatever, but there are some that I truly love. And this is a Western that I think the storyline is so good that I don't think you necessarily have to be like a true Western lover. I mean, it helps. Certainly helps because it is a Western. But I think it's a movie that there's a storyline there. If you can get into the idea of the friendships, the funny lines, the crazy lines, some of the scenes are powerful, and I would say that's part of the draw.
Mm.
But
I mean, don't get me wrong, it's a great movie, but it's also very much a period piece
yeah,
set in the West.
well, and that's another thing. And you were saying this yesterday when we were watching it. The costuming on this, oh my God, it's
Oh,
dead on accurate.
perfect.
Yeah,
Perfect. I don't know enough about the guns, but I'm assuming that they are period accurate as well.
a lot of the weapons. There were a few ones that I noticed that actually looked a little odd to me, but most of them were ones that I have seen and I mean, they had the Colt Peacemaker was Winchester's, but there were a few lever actions that I actually did not recognize in the. I was thinking I didn't know if they were Italian or it almost reminded me a little bit of a spaghetti western seeing some of the rifles, but there were always foreign manufactured rifles that were even in our old west. So yeah, I think it was pretty accurate on the weaponry.
Mm.
But yeah, definitely the hats they're wearing. When you look at them, those are probably much more historically accurate than you would see a lot of the Western with the typical like the classic modern Stetson. The hats they're wearing are probably more typical of what they actually were wearing at the time. Certainly the coats and what was the line you said about the heat and the clothing about
Oh
the
yeah,
sweating was
well, I mean they were all wearing wool clothing, Kurt Russell is quoted as saying one time on set a thermometer showed 134
good
degrees.
God, yeah, with wool clothing.
I mean, I'd
Uh,
be hard pressed to withstand that in shorts and a
yeah.
Hawaiian shirt.
Well, and on the opposite side of that, if the weather turns cold, if you get wet and your clothing you can't get your clothing dry and the temperature drops and you're getting cold and you're wearing clothing like that,
But I believe wool is insulating whether wet or not.
really,
Yeah,
well,
it has some very unique
yeah.
properties that make it desirable.
Yeah, I just figure that if I'm in wet clothes and the temperature's dropping, I don't I want to get dry. But yeah, you could be right. It could be better than say cotton.
Yeah,
But
Lisa, I'm going to use your quote. If you're watching, people who do a lot of outdoor stuff, they're saying is cotton kills.
oh really? Yeah,
Because if cotton does get wet, it will not insulate you and you
yeah,
will go
yeah,
hypothermic. Whereas wool, I believe, will still work as an insulator.
yeah. Yeah, I mean, I believe me, I wouldn't dispute that because I know, hey, our American military for a long time,
Hmm.
the World War II clothes were all wool. Um, I mean, yeah, now they have modern synthetics. They don't have to use the old wool, but they certainly did in World War II, and they fought in some pretty cold conditions, whether it was Korea or France or in World War II or whatever. It was we were fighting in wool.
And
I mean,
and
the leg wrappings were wool. So
and so while I love Tombstone, the fact that we've now shifted to talking about World War II makes me think we may have
yeah,
exhausted this
yeah,
subject.
I think you're right. I think you're right. We could talk all day about this Western. It's so good, but yeah, I think we've pretty much said it. We both agree. This is Dom.
Yeah.
This is definitely easily two thumbs up each. So like I said,
Yep.
we agree.
Respect to the great Val Kilmer.
Yes.
And if you haven't seen this movie, it's worth a look.
Yeah. And I mean, I respect to every actor that was in this because
Yes.
they all were terrific in this. And Kurt Russell, like I said, he was, absolutely. I've got a lot of respect for Russell. Anyways, he's made him. This is a guy that Kurt Russell started out in Disney movies.
Shaggy Dog.
Yeah, and oh yeah, all these different the computer wore tennis shoes, all these different, and I'm not putting those down because some of them are actually funny, but he started from that and he went from that to Snake Plissken, and I mean his role in the thing, he's terrific. The guy is just, and even in modern film there, stuntman Mike, he's just terrific whatever he does. Um, so I give full credit to him. And I mean, look at the cast behind us: Bill Paxton and Sam Elliott. I mean, this was just unbelievable. Billy Bob Thornton for all his little time on screen.
Hell, Zachary Quinn and Michael Roker in early roles for their careers.
What's his name? The actor,
Jason Priestley.
Yes, they all did terrific jobs as even with smaller roles. And the beautiful Dana Delaney, she did a terrific job as the actress in this. So we're gonna wrap it up, but I think we.
Do you have your movie for next week?
I do not have one yet. I don't have one picked out, and we'll talk about that afterwards. But
to be announced.
To be announced. So yeah, no, I did not. To tell you the truth, when you picked this movie, I was so happy that you picked it. It's such a well-loved movie for me that all of my head has been around doing this movie this week. So yeah, that's how pleased I was that you picked this.
It's a great movie.
It really is. It really is.
And with Val Kilmer's passing, I'm like, I gotta choose a Val Kilmer movie.
Yeah, yep. And you chose a great one because of he's done so many good ones. But I mean, even if you had picked The Doors, it would have been a great movie. I mean,
no, I would have picked Top Secret.
Yeah. Oh my God, Top Secret.
Or the Batman.
Yeah, and we've got to do Top Secret. That's so funny. It actually holds up too. The humor holds up. So that's a funny movie. But yeah, let's call it a wrap. We will see you guys next week.
Yep.
And surprise movie.
Exactly. So thanks for watching despite technical difficulties.
Yeah. Yep. So yeah, sorry for fading in and out. We're kind of ghosts this week, but hey, it's all about the background anyway, not us.
Yep.
So see you guys next week and enjoy.